Hello again. Does Joe Burrow need to outduel Matthew Stafford for the Bengals to win the Super Bowl? Coach Mangini's here to break it all down. And wait till you see what Nick's been working on for days now. He will have the NBA's attention for sure. A ranking like no other. Good Thursday morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. We have a fantastic show for you 10 days ahead of the Super Bowl. Nick Wright, Chris Broussard, Kevin Wildes. As always, Nick, there was no committee. There's no advisory board. There was no call a friend. This ranking you are giving us, all yours and yours alone. Are we going to be happy with it?
This is my pyramid helped by my proprietary NBA algorithm. But producers, why we got to go negative? Why go low instead of go high? Whose feelings will be hurt most? Why not? Who will be most exhilarated to see their placement? Maybe we'll have some Cavs on there. Young Evan Mobley. What? Let's be positive, guys. We don't have to go negative, Jenna.
Right, we went low. Let's go high. Let's go high. Yeah, that was great, Nick. I'm sorry about that. I am no longer the kindest person on the show. That is my bad. Honor goes to Nick. Let's get to the player pyramid in a little bit. We got to start, fun facts. We got to start talking about Tom Brady, kind guy. Because LeBron James joined the list of famous folk who congratulated Brady on the end of an incredible run. LeBron posting this on social media because it's easier than a phone call. Said, hell of a ride, my friend. Congrats on a heck of a career. When hell, then when heck. Thank you for the memories and inspiration throughout. That was nice. LeBron and Brady, Brady and LeBron, two sporting giants of the last 20-plus years. How about this, guys? These two combined to win 11 titles, 9 championship MVPs, and 7 regular season MVPs. That's quite a resume if they were a dual combo, sent it out together. Broussard, is the 21st century better defined by LeBron or by Brady?
Wow, good question. Inside the lines, it's clearly Brady. I think that's inarguable. And inside the lines, I mean on the field or on the court, he simply dominated his sport more than LeBron did. Now, you can argue in a vacuum that LeBron was the better individual player, but just dominance of their sport, Brady owned the NFL. In records individually, he will retire with more than LeBron and more significant records than LeBron. And then, obviously, winning. He's won more Super Bowls than any franchise, okay? And LeBron, they've both been to 10 championships, finals or Super Bowls. Brady's won 7, LeBron's won 4, so he's lost more than he's won. So as an athlete, I would say Brady. But overall, is definitely LeBron. Because off the field, outside the lines, LeBron has clearly defined the 21st century for athletes. First of all, he's a business mogul. He was doing movies and shows and all of that about himself and his life long before Brady. Like, you can argue Kevin Durant's clearly following LeBron's business path. And many other players are, as LeBron set the example. I could argue that Brady is as well. Like, Brady has gotten much more into business, and now, he's doing all his TV shows and movies about himself, man in the arena, all that stuff after LeBron. So I think he saw LeBron do that, and like many other athletes, picked that up. LeBron has set the blueprint for how to empower your friends. All right, before LeBron, it was, your boys hanging with you. They going on the road with you to all your games. And entourage is the term we use, posse. LeBron turned his childhood friends or gave them the opportunity, and they capitalized on becoming business moguls themselves. And you can argue to some degree, Maverick Carter and Rich Paul are becoming icons in their own right. All right, so LeBron set that path, player empowerment. I would argue Kevin Durant would not have even thought of going to Golden State, which changed the history of the NBA. Anthony Davis doesn't go to the Lakers. James Harden doesn't go to Brooklyn if LeBron didn't start player empowerment by going to Miami from Cleveland. And then, of course, just social media. LeBron has 25 times more Twitter followers than Tom Brady and 10 times more Instagram followers than Brady. So off the field, LeBron is far more defining and impactful than Brady. But in the lines, I got to go with Brady.
Listen, I think we all agree that off the field, LeBron had more impact, and you didn't even mention that LeBron, for good or for bad, no matter what you think of it, is active in the political specter as well, and Brady shies away from it as much as possible. Off the field, from the decision to a million other things, it's obviously LeBron. But I totally disagree with you on the field. You said a few things there that I think are just wrong. You said Brady's going to retire with far more impactful or important records. What could be a more important individual record than the all-time scoring title, which LeBron will have? He already has the most of everything in the playoffs. By the way, Brady has the same things. So as far as all-time statistical records, I think Brady and LeBron, I think that is a check and a check. It's a tie almost. What LeBron, though, has been able to do everywhere he has gone, and independent of coaching, far outshines what Tom Brady was able to do. Tom Brady won 6 Super Bowls with the greatest coach ever, won another one with a coach who had already been to a Super Bowl previously, a very good coach. LeBron James went to the finals with Mike Brown, then with Eric Spoelstra, then with David Blatt, then with Ty Lue, then with Frank Vogel. What all 5 of those guys have in common is none of them ever sniffed a finals before LeBron walked into their lives, and one would argue, aside from Spo, none of them would ever sniff a finals again post LeBron. Ty Lue actually probably could. He came close last year. But before LeBron got there, those were not all-time great coaches. Additionally, if we are going to do but one guy won 7 rings, the other guy won 4, what we must acknowledge, and Wilds, I'm going to put you in a little logical vice here, because in your old baby goat stuff all year, you kept making a point.
Yeah.
And it was a good one. That first Super Bowl the Patriots won, was Tom Brady the driving factor? Was Tom Brady great? No. Or did he have 1 touchdown the whole playoff run? That's the first Super Bowl he won with the Patriots. The last Super Bowl he won with the Patriots. Was Tom Brady amazing in that game? No.
Let's hear it.
They scored 13 points. Nope. It was Belichick and the defense. Has LeBron James ever had the ability, I stunk, but we got the ring anyway? Nope. If he's ever not excellent, his team doesn't win. It would be like if the 2011 finals, LeBron had his moment, but they won anyway. Even the most recent Super Bowl, Brady was excellent in the Super Bowl, no doubt about it. But in the game to get there, he threw 3 second-half interceptions, and his team bailed him out. So that's not able to happen in basketball, because you got to play both sides. You got to play both ends of the court, obviously, all of it. And LeBron never had a decade-long gap without winning a title. So I think on the court, forget off the court, where I think we all agree, on the court, LeBron's resume to me is clearly the most impressive, I would argue, ever of any athlete, but certainly if we're going to say of this century.
I think that's a great take, and I want to specifically dig in on the rings. Just for the record, Tom Brady also did not pick off Russell Wilson to seal the game there. That was Bill Belichick and Brian Flores.
Yeah, but he played well in that game.
Here's the thing.
Sure, but he played, but that's
he played well.
But that's like
I'm
the Kyrie
but when
shot.
It came down to it,
you're not there without him. You know, like, that's, to be fair. He put them in a position.
Obviously, you're the quarterback. He didn't play terrible, but that game was won by the defense. That is the defining moment of that game. I'm just a little upset. I feel like Tom Brady should have watched all those Super Bowls back and be like, you know what? I'm going to go with 5 hearts on the Belichick Instagram post. Now that I see how well the defense played, I should go with 5 hearts. I'm going to edit the Instagram post. Broussard, we talk a lot about you being the elder statesman of the show, and we kind of joke around about it, but it is true that you've covered the game longer than us. You say something interesting about Jordan, that the statue of Jordan went up that said, here's the greatest basketball player of all time, after he had won 3 rings. Do you feel like in the course of your career that we are now at peak count the rings culture, and that Brady helped push count the rings culture further than it ever has been in your career of what you've seen in sports?
No. I think Magic and Bird began the emphasis on winning. because neither of them was dominant historically, statistically. They were great statistically, but not dominant. But they won so much, and that defined them. And remember, Jerry West, before Bird and Magic, was known as Mr. Clutch, even though he lost, his first 7 trips to the NBA Finals. Yep. So that would never happen post-Bird Magic. And then Jordan took it to a whole nother level by winning 6 in 7 years, if you want to go that route in his playing career. So I wouldn't say Brady's defined it more. What I would say about Brady is for football players, quarterbacks, he's totally set a new bar where if Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, any of these guys finishes their career with just 1 ring, it's going to be looked at as a massive disappointment, including Aaron Rodgers too, because Brady won so many.
So weird, yeah.
Right. Just to be quick, Wild, since you opened the door here, this was not supposed to be about Michael Jordan, but just to respond, what changed the count the rings culture and all of that was the folks deciding the answer to the question is Jordan is the greatest ever. We will adjust the question accordingly. Because Jordan was the greatest ever when he had 3 rings and Magic had 5 and Kareem had 6. But then when Jordan caught up in rings, then the rings, because when Jordan retired, and it was an eye test thing, people weren't up in arms. How can you call him the greatest ever? He only has 3 rings. People were like, I watched. He's better than all those guys. But then this kid from Akron comes by and you watch. He's like, he's bigger, stronger, faster, can do more. But he doesn't have the rings. He doesn't have the jewelry, America. You can't do it.
And
so like that's.
But here's the thing, Nick, and this is an argument for Brady. Brady leaves his game as the undisputed GOAT. Right? I mean, anybody that doesn't think Brady's like the GOAT quarterback is just simply a hater. LeBron's not doing that.
Correct.
I mean, and obviously you and I disagree on it.
Give it time.
But let's just go. Let's just go. The athletic role player. 73%.
The athletic. He's not done.
Much more.
ESPN's role fans.
73%. He's not done.
Guys, you're both wrong. Elizabeth
seed.
Taylor wins the Count the Rings conversation. Shift our focus to Super Bowl 56. What's on the line for Sean McVay in the big game? You're going to keep talking. I can never get my jokes out. We're back after this. You know what we will be talking about? Super Bowl 56, now just 10 days away. Rams, Bengals, LA back in the Super Bowl. Thanks in large part to their star-studded roster, but also thanks to Sean McVay for piecing this puzzle together. A new column out in the LA Times put McVay under the microscope, saying outside of Stan Kroenke, McVay has more at stake than anyone in the upcoming Super Bowl. Fun fact, also just a regular fact, McVay was outcoached in a big way by Bill Belichick last time the Rams played on Super Sunday. So Broussard, does McVay have more at stake than anyone else in Super Bowl 56?
I'm going to say no. All right, now he's got a lot at stake, and I get all that. I get that he was undressed by Bill Belichick in his last Super Bowl appearance a few years ago. I get that, just a week ago, he made some bad game management errors that left his team without any timeouts over the last 10 minutes of the game, the 2 failed challenges and things like that. I get that he will be heavily criticized if he loses this game. All right. And people will talk about he was the golden boy and he was supposed to win and he hadn't been able to win the big game. But going to 2 Super Bowls in your first 5 years as a head coach for a franchise that hadn't been to the playoffs for a dozen years before you got there, that is a great achievement. And Sean McVay will still be viewed as one of the best coaches in the NFL, win or lose. And above that, he's only 36 years old, still the youngest head coach in the NFL. He has got a long time to win a Super Bowl. Not that it's easy, but win more Super Bowls. And just to illustrate that point, Bill Belichick, 5 years into his coaching career, was an abject failure in Cleveland. And now he's had time to go on and become the GOAT coach. I'm going to say it's Matthew Stafford, because Stafford will be 34 years old next week. He's in his 13th season, and his first 12 years before this season, he was viewed as a talented loser. And I mean that in terms of football. He He was a guy that couldn't win. That was the view. You can talk about, oh, he was with the Lions all you want, but he also didn't show up in their 3 playoff games that he played in. And we've seen most great quarterbacks, even in a bad situation, at least make their team perennially competitive. He didn't do that in Detroit. And now he's got a chance to really just about seal, to many people, a Hall of Fame bid. Because he's going to, if he wins this game, this Super Bowl, he's going to retire in the top 10 all-time passing yards and passing touchdowns. Put a Super Bowl ring on that, and it's going to be hard to keep him out. And if he loses this game with the better offensive line, the better defense, I would say the better receiving core, although some might argue that, and the better coach, there's no excuse. And I think the loser tag will continue to follow him until he wins a Super Bowl, especially losing one where most people think they're the decisive favorite. So I put it on Stafford.
Yeah, I disagree. I think Stafford has shed the loser tag. I think in your first year out of Detroit, you win a road playoff game. You beat Brady with the great throw, as your team is crumbling, but you're not crumbling. You then have a 10-point fourth quarter comeback in the NFC Championship game. I think the loser tag's gone. I think the person with the most at stake is Joe Burrow. And here's why, Wilds. Joe Burrow has exceeded even the highest of expectations. He's been exceptional. Nobody is denying that. It is also fair to say the following 2 things. One is, they've played 3 playoff games. All 3 of them came down to the wire. The first one, Derek Carr is inexplicably spiking a football he shouldn't and then not throwing into the end zone when he should. But it's still, you have it 1st and goal inside the 10, down 7. The second one, the Titans have the ball driving. Tie game, and Tannehill throws his 3rd pick. And obviously McPherson then makes the kick. And we know what happened in the 3rd one, where even as great as the comeback was for Cincinnati, it still was the Chiefs with the ball in the final 40 seconds, down 3, chance to win, then the ball in overtime, and the Chiefs choked it away. So it was not exactly an easy path to get here. And Wilds, it will not be an easy path to get back to the playoffs. Do you think the Bengals are going to be the favored to win? Hold on. Do you think the Bengals will be favored to win their division next year? No, not the Super Bowl. Their division. I don't know. Let's see. Certainly not if the Pittsburgh gets Rodgers.
Most likely.
Probably not if Baltimore gets, if Lamar's back healthy with Baltimore. So I just think for Cincinnati, this is a moment that must be taken advantage of. Not to say they'll never be back, but we can't say, oh my God, look at all the great young quarterbacks in the AFC. Oh my God, look at how hard the AFC is, and then just assume this team will be right back there. I think the Rams are going to go into next year, win or lose, as pretty decisive favorites in the NFC. Brady's gone.
I think that's fair.
Rodgers might leave.
That's fair.
So I think this is the moment for Burrow and the Bengals.
I'm glad you've come around to what Broussard and I have been trying to tell you, that, you know what? One Super Bowl is enough for a lot of guys. You got to take that chance and grab it. You might never get a chance to win another one. Your offensive line might be banged up. You might run into the greatest all-time quarterback, and then you're just kind of stuck at the AFC Championship, throwing interceptions and throwing the game away. I'm just saying, I'm glad you've come around. Broussard, question for you about Burrow. I feel like Burrow's playing with house money. In fact, I expect this game to look a lot more like the Titans game, where Kansas City couldn't put any real pressure on him, and they did. He just danced out of it. But I think Aaron Donald and Von Miller are going to be in his face. So I expect him to have a pretty rough game. No matter what, though, I think we come out of that game thinking, you know what? Joe Burrow, what a performance. Regardless, I don't care if he throws for 165 yards. Or do you agree that you're just kind of Joe Burrow's playing with house money at this time, and he can't go backwards?
Totally agree. Everybody in Cincinnati is playing with house money. Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow, everyone. That's why I didn't even consider a Bengal. And I get, because Burrow's already done what nobody else has done. First round, number 1 pick, leading a team to the Super Bowl in his second year, almost his rookie year because he got hurt last year. And a team that won 6 games the 2 previous years, a team that everyone was saying, don't go to, get out of the draft, demand the trade.
Can I ask you a question,
and he's
Brew?
done it. So he's coming out of this with love. Yeah, go ahead.
That's true.
No matter what.
That part's true. But let me ask you this. Who do you think's more likely to be back here? Stafford or Burrow next year or the year after? Because I think it's Stafford. That's why I think Burrow is more at stake. I agree with you. They've already exceeded expectations. It wouldn't be a disappointment.
Stafford's window, though, to get back is shorter. I mean, Burrow's got a whole career. And I know really this is a Kansas City Mahomes take because you think they're going to go to the next 10 Super Bowls.
No, it's
not.
I
get that. Burrow will be back.
No, I promise it's not.
It's not easy.
The NFC is so much easier and the Rams are better. It's just,
agreed,
I just think
but
it's harder to get
Burrow's
back.
already. It will be, and we've talked about that with Rodgers going to the AFC. But Burrow, I think, will be back.
I love house money. Let's talk some basketball again. Because Nick's breaking out his NBA player pyramid. Whose feelings are going to get hurt by Nick's rankings? We'll find out next. First things first. Didn't even go.
What is happening
Probably
to Brian
of that.
Kelly? My goodness.
Time for Nick's NBA player pyramid.
I don't understand it.
Change your accent. Change everything. Back in all its glory for the first time since before the season started. A lot has changed since then. I anticipate the player pyramid has some similar seismic shifts. Knicks, say that 7 times fast. Take it away, buddy.
Similar seismic shifts. Jenna, I feel like I say it 3 times, I'm going to curse. So let's just keep it moving. By the way, only revealing half the pyramid. This is too much packed in here. We pared the pyramid down. It used to be a 66-player, 11-level pyramid. They said, no, we can only do 8 layers. We're doing half and half. So we are now going to show you players 36 through 22. I believe that's what we're showing you right. No, 36 through 11, now that I think about it. All right, show it to us. Show us the bottom of the pyramid. I'm not sure exactly how the reveals are going to go. Tier 8. Look at the Cavs. Feisty Cavs. 2 guys on the pyramid. Evan Mobley, first rookie to make any iteration of the pyramid. Darius Garland. One other note. Clay is hanging on for dear life here. At some point, I'm not there yet. We're all rooting for Clay. We're giving him a lot of time. At some point, a Klay Thompson, a discussion's going to have to be had. He hasn't been good.
Yeah, a discussion's going to be had.
I love him. He hasn't been good. And we'll discuss Kyrie in a moment. Level 7. These are all complementary pieces. These are all excellent players. Well, everyone except for Gobert is a great player to have if you're trying to win a championship, but you are ruined if they're your best player. Gobert's in a weird spot because he is a great player to have if you're trying to win regular season games, and then he's your defensive stopper who you have to take off the court for defense in the playoffs, and he also can't score. He's a weird guy to handle, but the advanced metrics guys tell me he's the best defensive player ever. So what do I know? Row 6. Harden. It is a long fall for James Harden. Coming into the year, he wasn't row 6. He was top 6, meaning top 3 rows, one of the 6 best players in basketball. Now, are you sure he's better than anyone on that same row? Paul George was playing excellent before he got hurt. Trey's scoring 30 a night again. Karl-Anthony Towns finally going to be in the playoffs for the first time without Jimmy Butler. Wilds mentioned Tatum and the Celtics all of a sudden getting together, and DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan's going to be this year's guy. You know who should be in the MVP discussion, even though no one thinks he's the MVP and he has no chance of winning it. That's the DeMar DeRozan this year. It's like, hey, that's cool. It's like, you can't win it, but that's fun. And then 5th row. So now we're at guys 11 through 15 in this great league of ours. Anthony Davis, by the way, Anthony Davis started the year in the 5th row, looked like he was going to drop off, and then got himself back up there. Good game by him last night as well. Jimmy Butler just changed his first name, perpetually underrated Jimmy Butler. And then you guys know, Dame's having a down year and he's hurt, but not down enough for me to drop him too far. And then Donovan and Devin speak for themselves. You know, the lead scorers on 2 excellent teams. Brew, this is not a committee. This is all my own work. So unlike when you attack the committee, this is very personal to me. The committee, I can be emotionless. I can be sober. Your thoughts on the bottom half of the player pyramid?
All right, my thoughts. I get that Kyrie Irving is not playing home games, okay? But you've got a lot of injured guys on these tiers, right? PG-13,
for sure.
Dame, we could go on there.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming
Kawhi's going to show up
you
later.
didn't hold.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you're not holding availability against guys. All right, that you're going strictly on game, on ability, on skills, all that. For you to continue to disrespect Kyrie Irving when you're not counting availability and have him in the kiddie pool, that's where you got it with a bunch of rookies and second-year players, and you say Klay Thompson the sentimental vote. That is completely disrespectful. Kyrie Irving is better than everybody in row 7. I get we can disagree with Kyrie's stance and we can disagree with some of the things he's done. Kyrie Irving is a phenomenal basketball player, and he deserves to be on your row 6 at least. All right, second.
Can I ask you a question about Kyrie?
James Harden.
Hold on, before you move on, can I ask you?
Go ahead.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Before you get to Harden, let me ask you a question about Kyrie. Because you said row 7.
Yeah.
Is there anyone on row 7 whose team would trade that guy straight up for Kyrie? Is there any of those guys?
But it's not because of his game.
No,
it's
he would be able to play.
Will he be able to play? When will he
All
be able
those
to
cities
play?
he could play.
His injury
aside from Golden State.
A lot of the but a lot of the other things that come with Kyrie. You know, his
those things
personality or the stances he takes.
Yeah, well,
we're talking
personality
basketball.
matters. Okay, all right,
We're
go
talking
ahead.
basketball. All right, and then Harden. You have gone from overrating James Harden when you used to say he's the best player never to win a ring to becoming Harden hater number 1. All right, unbelievable transformation here. James Harden should move up. I would move Harden up and move Dame down. So exchange places with Harden and Damian Lillard. And here's the deal. James Harden, I think you would agree with this, is historically better than Dame, right? He's had a better career. He's been better in his career than Dame.
Yes.
And this year he's been better than Dame. Dame was not playing very well. In fact, Portland has a better record without Dame, and it's not a small sample size this year than they had with him. Okay, James Harden, not the same. All right, obviously the Nets' better record with him is much better, and he's 22 points, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds a game. I get it, a down year for him, but he should be on row 5. Those are my 2 main beefs with the lower part of the player pyramid.
All right, let me respond quickly just on the Kyrie thing. I am not, you're right, the availability part because injured players are fine. But Kyrie, you said his personality, everything that goes along with Kyrie, it matters. In a similar way, everything that goes along with Draymond matters in a positive, right? Like Draymond's real impact on winning cannot show up in box scores. Kyrie's real impact on how hard it is to deal with him cannot show up in highlights of him cooking guys. But on James Harden versus Damian Lillard. Now, I put you in a tough spot because make this pyramid, and then James Harden has 4 points last night on 2 of 11 shooting, and they lose to the Kings, and it's like, boy, Bru's gonna have to cape for Harden this morning. Sorry, but I didn't make him play that way. 37 minutes, 4 points. Well done, James. Here's the problem.
One game.
And here Wilds is one game. It's one game. Yeah. And Kyrie's saying, listen, teams are like trying against us. It's totally unfair. They're like trying to submit us and stuff. Where they do that at? But here's the issue. And here's why I dropped Harden. Because everything Bruce said about Dame is correct. Dame has always been a far better and more reliable playoff performer than James Harden. Dame has as many game-winning, series-winning, buzzer-beating shots in the playoffs as Harden has double-digit turnover games in the playoffs. So the reason Harden was considered better than Dame in our eyes is because, but in the regular season, Harden is an offense unto himself. Harden can carry you. So I am going to ding a guy more if all of a sudden the thing he was best at he's not doing anymore than Dame, whose Dame's always been very good in the regular season, but his best utility for you is he is a killer in the playoffs. Now they're probably going to miss the playoffs this year. But Harden, I think Harden-Wilds is fairly and rightfully dropped given his performance this season.
I think that's solid. I'm going to do a weird take here. I'm going to start talking about Joe Burrow. Because my biggest takeaway from the tiers was what's up with all the number 1 picks? And the reason why I mentioned Joe Burrow is this. Bengals won 2 games. They got the number 1 pick, and they're headed to the Super Bowl. And a lot of that is because of Joe Burrow. Number 1 pick in football can send you to the Super Bowl. That never used to be the case. It'd be like basketball. A guy is, 20% of the team on the floor, can play both sides. That person can send you and change your franchise. That's why the Sixers tanked everything. Let's look back at the last 12 number 1 picks and where they are on the tiers. Now, Cade, it's early. It's early for Ant. I get it. Zion's hurt and out. Ayton did go to the finals, but he's on the 8th row. I'm not saying he's a transcendent generational player. Fult's not on the pyramid. Simmons is not playing. Cat, okay. I think it'd be good if he left Minnesota, but he's on the 6th row. This guy's an all-star. You don't even get him on the pyramid. That's a whole nother conversation. Anthony Bennett's out. AD's we had him up at number 3 best player in the league. He's falling. Kyrie's falling. And I just looked up the stats, Broussard. He's averaging 0 games at home, so that's tough. And John Wall's doing a lot of practicing on Instagram. Haven't seen him in a game. So do you think that we should, I don't know, Nick, start rethinking the way that we view the number 1 pick overall in the NBA since now we've gone a decade without getting a true, at this moment, star on the top of your pyramid?
Well, no, I think that when you look at that, can we put Wild's graphic back up for a moment? Because the thing is, and people can figure out who the top 10 guys are. Now, yes, there are some older guys, like if we can put Wild's graphic back up, like LeBron and Durant and Chris Paul, who wouldn't fall in this purview. Right. But it's also along the lines of, the Pelicans, I would have picked Zion, by the way, but the guy who went right after Zion is high on the pyramid, Ja. The guy who went a couple picks after Ayton and who should have gone number 1 is high on the pyramid, and Luka. You know what I mean? Embiid is, still to be revealed. He was the 3rd pick of his draft. So I think it's more about teams have drafted the wrong guy. Now, Zion, that is total Monday morning quarterbacking by me. I was adamant Zion should go number 1, but I was also adamant Luka should go number 1, and the fact that Luka ended up falling to 3 is still bananas to me, but that's what happened. And so I think that, I don't think there's not value. I think it's that teams need to draft better. You know what I mean? Because there's stars coming out of almost every draft, like franchise changers. Teams just at the very top of the draft haven't picked the right guy, Joe.
All right, that's beautiful. And that is just the first half, believe it or not. The rest of Nick's NBA player pyramid, the second half, Nick's better half, the top 4 rows, big reveal coming up at 9 Eastern. We got to get back to some football now. Does Joe Burrow need to outduel Matthew Stafford, outduel him for the Bengals to win the Super Bowl? We got Coach Mangini in with us next. This is First Things First. First things first, we welcome in our master of X's and O's, our giver of game plans, former head coach Eric Mangini. Coach, we await your mastery. Good morning. Here we go. Super Bowl 56, Bengals Rams. You got a special recipe for Cincy in this one. And no, not that Cincinnati chili recipe you gave me that one time that was all carbs and no fiber. We will table that one. Coach, what is the game plan for the Bengals to upset the Rams?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that recipe, Jenna. Usually I do better with that. You know what a big chef that I am. I thought I was going to be doing a KC breakdown, but I'm doing the Cincinnati one.
Oh,
the weirdest thing.
Just get to it. Get to it.
I had to call Apple and Verizon to see if my phone was broken because I got no text this past weekend. It's the craziest thing. I've been getting texts all season long.
Shots
and then
fired.
Boom, silence.
Over.
But let's talk about the team that beat Kansas City in the in the championship game and see what they need to do to handle the Rams. And I think the first thing and probably the most important thing is to win the turnover differential. And they've done a great job of this throughout the playoffs. They're +4. They lead all the playoff teams. And it's really come down to a turnover in all 3 games. There's an interception in the Raiders game. They had the pick to set up the wins against Tennessee and KC. So that's the first thing they need to do. The second thing is it's got to be screens, it's got to be quick passes, and it's got to be max protection. And they can't repeat the 9-sack game they had against Tennessee. They did a great job against Kansas City with only 1 sack, incorporating those things. And by doing these 3 things, it's going to keep the Rams' defensive line off balance, which is a must. And then the last thing is being able to execute in the gotta-have-it moments. And what I mean by that is when the whole world knows that you have to do something. So the whole world knows you have to pass. Can you get open? Can you catch the ball? Can you throw a catchable ball? Can you get it to the player that you want in those big moments during the game? And I'm gonna show you a big moment here. And Nick, I chose Tennessee instead of Kansas City, and to help you out. But what's happening here is Tennessee is going to come up and they're going to press. And then the situation, 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter, they're playing press man coverage, and they're taking the safeties and they're putting them in the half the field, which really means they're over the top of the outside receivers. So those outside receivers are essentially doubled. Then what Cincinnati's going to do is they're going to max protect. Just like I talked about in the second point, they're going to give Joe Burrow a chance to throw this, keep the tight end and back in. And then the routes are mirrored routes, corner routes outside with a middle read inside. And the vulnerability of this defense is really the inside part or the middle of the field, but the best player is sitting outside, and that's who Joe Burrow wants to go to. And here's what the best player does. At the line of scrimmage, he's able to get the cornerback to open up his hips and have vertical entry into the route. And when you're at the release point, that's exactly what you want to do. The DB's trying to disrupt. This is the stem of the route where he's building. Look how he's selling with his body language that this is going to be an inside breaking route. He's giving that language to the cornerback and making him feel that, so that when he gets to here, this is called the break point. You can tell that you can see that he's planning on his inside foot, so he's got to go outside. But look at his shoulders and his head. It's pointing inside. The DB is reading his shoulders and head. That's not what you want to do. You need to read the numbers. But he does a great job on the stem selling inside. He does a great job right here selling inside. He breaks outside, and now he's got 5 yards of separation between him and the sideline. He's got 7 yards of separation between him and the safety, who's essentially double teamed. And now with the quarterback, you can see the cornerback was anticipating breaking inside and undercutting that route. Now there's a huge separation here. So Burrow's able to come back, hit the route, and now they're in field goal position and can win the game.
So, all right. Well, that was exceptional.
What a great break.
I think that actually, first of all, thank you for not including the Chiefs game. That was one of the only nice things you've done for me this football season. I appreciate that. But also, that might have been my favorite one because of the minutiae that really matters as far as where Chase's body is pointed as opposed to where he's actually going, because I never would have seen that. But I want to talk to you about how the Bengals got here, because it's that combination. And that combination, I will admit when I am wrong, I loved Jamar Chase coming out of college. I thought the Bengals were idiots for drafting him. It's like, it's great. Why would you take him when the quarterback's going to be on his butt the whole game? That game, he was sacked 9 times, and the biggest play of the game. Now, 9's a big number to overcome, but he sacked 9 times, overcame it. They end up winning the game. How surprised are you, or maybe the better way to put it is, how special is it that this connection, which dominated college football and then seamlessly went to dominating the NFL, these two guys, because he's throwing what you don't show in that clip, he's throwing that ball before Chase breaks. He knows where Chase is going to be. He releases it before he's even done it, which makes it almost indefensible. For them to build almost from the outside in, saying, we know we don't have a great offensive line, we're still going to use a top 6 pick on a wide receiver, feels to me like that kind of strikes you as antithetical to how you win football games. But this connection has been so dominant, they've been able to overcome it.
It's always a hard equation to figure out in the draft room when you're looking at special players. And I drafted 2 offensive linemen my first year in New York, and they became pillars of the offensive line for the next 10 years. But those aren't exciting draft picks. And you're looking at how much impact is the center going to have or the left tackle going to have versus an explosive playmaker. And it seems that Cincinnati's made the right decision. Chase has changed a lot of things, and his ability to turn a short completion into some sort of special play and big play, and the amount of coverage that gets pushed to him and the way that opens other things up, it's unique. And then the relationship that he and Burrow have instantaneously usually takes years to build between a quarterback and a wide receiver at that level. So they were smart in understanding that as well.
Coach, we've never seen a number 1 quarterback do what Burrow's done. Go to the Super Bowl in his second year. And you remember a couple years ago, people were saying do whatever you can not to go to Cincinnati. Demand a trade, get out of the draft, whatever it takes, don't go to the Bengals. And these 2 quarterbacks, both number 1 picks, Burrow and Stafford, and you can't even say, well, Burrow got Jamar Chase, because Stafford had Calvin Johnson. So what does it tell you is the difference between a Joe Burrow and a Matthew Stafford? And a lot of it might be off the field stuff, intangibles, but what does it tell you that Burrow has that Stafford doesn't when you see what Stafford did in Detroit, which was not turn them around, and Burrow do with a team that was just as bad as the Lions and turned them around almost immediately?
Yeah, I don't love comparing quarterbacks in that way, because we're talking about a quarterback that's played 13 years versus a quarterback who's played a very short amount of time. And you're right. Cincinnati has historically been a place where people didn't want to go. I think they've done a better job in probably the last 2 administrations of working towards higher character players, and typically Cincinnati would take some chances on guys that they thought they were getting at a discount and were going to produce at a very high level, and it ended up being disruptive. And that they seem to have moved away from that. That started with Marvin Lewis and now following the same path. That to me has helped significantly with the environment, the character of the group, the resilience, all those things. And I don't know what happened early on in Detroit or in what type of dysfunction may have affected major decisions along the way. So it's hard to go apples to apples there. But I like the way that Cincinnati has approached things from a draft character perspective, where they're still taking some chances, but they're not taking the volume of chances that they once did.
We got Coach Mangini back with us, and we are talking Tom Brady. As praise and gratitude pours in yesterday, perhaps the most anticipated nod, his former coach, Bill Belichick, thanking Brady for his storied run, calling him the ultimate competitor and winner and the best player in NFL history. Brady, big Instagram guy, said, "Thank you, Coach Belichick. I appreciate being coached by you, the greatest coach in NFL history." Emoji heart, emoji heart, emoji heart. There's a couple of goats exchanging goat words. Wilds doesn't like the emoji hearts. He wants words over emojis. Our friends at Fox Bet Sportsbook, not totally 100% absolutely convinced Brady is done. It is a long shot, but they've got the odds on Brady playing again at plus 750 and the odds that he won't at minus 1,200 and the odds that he will use yet more heart emojis to say thank you to people one of the big numbers. Wilds, do you believe that Tom Brady is actually retired?
I do not. First of all, he hasn't said he's retired, so I do think that the door is slightly open. I think that he'll be retired when he submits his retirement papers to the league office. So here's the thing. I don't think that this is a hot take that Brady is more likely to come back than stay retired. And I understand why people are like, what? Why? That would be so weird. It's not. Because I think people are looking at it, Coach, through 3 superstars and their own personal experiences. The 3 superstars are Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson and Jim Brown. Guys who had more in the tank, were healthy, and decided to shut it down. And then personally, people are like, well, you know what? My grandfather retired from the post office, and, that's what people do. When they announce they retire, he never went back and delivered another package after that. That's not what Tom Brady is doing. Tom Brady, you could argue, was the most valuable player this year. Aaron Rodgers will win it, but you can make an argument that he's the MVP. So on this side of the ledger, you got Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, and Jim Brown. On this side of the ledger, I'm going to give you a list of great players who had more in the tank, who announced their retirement and came back. Brett Favre, Michael Jordan twice, Michael Phelps, Mario Lemieux, Reggie White, Randy Moss, Deion Sanders. And I know the argument like, well, they weren't that old. Roger Clemens was 41 years old hanging out in Texas. He said, you know what? Why don't I pitch for the Astros and win the Cy Young and the ERA title? So on this side is 3 guys, and on this side, I just named 10 guys, and I didn't even talk about every boxer who's ever lived. So I think it is more likely that Tom Brady still has the fire that he can still do it and will come back. Will he play 17 games, 20 games in the playoffs? Maybe not. Could I see him coming back in the middle of the season, at the end of the season, when he's like, you know what, this itch, I still have it. That's what made me the best. Yes, I think it's more likely than not that he comes back.
Yeah, Kevin, I tend to agree with you. I could see Tom definitely coming back, and it's one of these situations where he's played football for 30 plus years, and he's still playing it at a high level. His body's in great shape, and he's retiring reluctantly. He probably looks at what Tampa Bay has in terms of free agency and how difficult a mountain it would be to climb to get back to where they were. And this is a good time to step away. He's got a lot of pressure, it seems like, from home to step away as well. But if he continues to take care of himself the same way, which it looks like he will, and you get into the season and then late in the season especially, somebody goes down and they need Tom, I could see Tom considering it, especially if it's a situation where it's a system he knows. I could see him going back to New England if they were late into the season. Well, this is what I'm saying. Is late into the season. Mac Jones gets hurt. It's the same offensive system. He can step in. I mean, there's another great scene for your movie. Maybe it's in Las Vegas with Josh McDaniels. If they push to a playoff run, we saw Derek Carr get hurt, late in the season one year, and they didn't have any good answers. But he's going to watch a lot of bad quarterback play next year and realize he's better than a bunch of those guys who are playing, and he's going to be rested. And who knows? He can come back out and do something that nobody else has done, is be a substitute late ad Super Bowl winner.
Look, I would love for you two to be right. I think it'd be phenomenal. Obviously, I'm a journalist. Nothing better than a great story. And that would be dramatic in so many ways. I would assume he wouldn't go to New England, and here's why. Because I don't think they're going to have weapons. Like, if he were to come back and went anywhere, I would believe he's going somewhere with great receiving weapons, and I don't think New England will have that. But if he went to a San Francisco, say Trey Lance doesn't play well next year, and he goes to San Francisco, I'd love to see that, and that'd be great. But here's my problem. And while his age, he'll be 46 at the start of not this upcoming season, but the following season. And while you mentioned Roger Clemens coming back at, I think, 41, well, in baseball, it had been done. Like, Nolan Ryan pitched till he was like 46. Okay, so that was old at 41, but it wasn't unprecedented. Brady would be doing something. No one has done what he's done at this late stage of their career at such a high level. And Coach, I want to hear from Coach. I just want to ask you this, Coach. And I get it. He's defied logic so far. He's beat Father Time to some degree. But at 46 years of age, with 1 year away from football, for Gronk a year away, get your body right, it felt good. He was 30 years old. But I feel like at 46, the speed of the game, if you threw yourself back into it, taking hits would be jarring at that age. Am I tripping on that, or do you see no difference between coming back at 46 versus coming back at 36?
No, you're not wrong at all. But all Tom does is defy what's been done before. He keeps setting new thresholds for what's attainable and achievable. And I thought about San Francisco as well, and that would be a great story, his childhood team. But for him to be most effective, if he were to go back during the season, he needs to go to a system that he knows. And there's not that many systems where he can just plug and play. But if it was a system that he could plug and play, he could still be effective. He'll be a lot more effective than whoever the team's number 2 is, if it's that situation.
Exactly.
And how athletic does he have to be? He's a pocket passer. It's not like he's running around to get first downs.
That's all true. That's true. It's also true that he wasn't forced to retire. He just chose to retire. And Wildes did tell one lie. And the lie Wildes told was, "I'll believe it when he files his retirement papers." Kevin Wildes will never believe it.
Pull those right
That
back.
is a total lie. And just like Wildes told us in a vulnerable moment, he has a sign behind his camera that says, "Speak slower, be kind." And I, in an equally vulnerable moment, said, my sign says, "Fancy words, mock Wildes." This is pitiable, Kevin Wildes. This is, let me tell you something about because, buddy, this is, I understand you've got Brady, you've got Jordan, but I'm now going to remind the audience because they didn't know you at the time. Jordan, at his Hall of Fame speech, alluded to wanting to come back. And Kevin Wildes didn't have this television show, but he had half-baked ideas, and he's out there being like, you know what? I think Jordan give you 15 a night.
Hey.
I think he could do it. Like Wildes is a child at heart and doesn't want to say goodbye. And here is the other part of it. Because Tom Brady, the fact that all of his Patriots-related responses have been thumbed out in Instagram stories in responses to statements made on letterhead, flowery language, is what is making this harder for Wildes to swallow. Wildes is setting aside logic, what he knows is probably true, because he's like, Tom wouldn't ghost us like that. He wouldn't. It's because he's coming back. He would never end the career leaving us like that without saying anything. That's what's happening here.
Wildes.
And we're watching it play out in real time, buddy.
I agree.
We've had several quarterbacks retire recently. Big Ben's arm was shot. He can't play. We saw it. Drew Brees' arm was shot. Can't play. We saw it. Phillip Rivers in a playoff game. Played well the whole year for the Colts. Decided to retire. Went and coached high school football. And Jenna, what did we hear halfway through this year? You know, the Saints called me. I'd listen. Phillip Rivers wants to get back on the field, and he doesn't have the historical competitive drive, and as an elite player as Tom Brady, wasn't as good as Tom Brady. So, yes, add that to my list of a dozen people that have come back.
Wildes, how many could Jordan give the Hornets?
I think you're right,
If
Kevin.
he suited up right now.
Right now?
How many a night could
he
Jordan
would never
give?
do.
Yeah.
Give the Hornets, he would never play against his
Kevin?
own team, so 0.
You got a bad bout of separation anxiety. We're going to deal with it. We got more football next, but coming up at the top of the hour, Nick's got 4 more rows, top 4 rows of his NBA player pyramid to unveil. Broussard and Wildes will pick those decisions apart. It's going to be fun. First things first. First things first, stories to start your morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. We're talking Tom Brady this Thursday morning because LeBron James joined the list of famous folk who congratulated Brady on the end of an incredible run. Note I didn't say retire. Wilds. LeBron posting this on social media because it is easier than a phone call. Hell of a ride, my friend. Congrats on a heck of a career. Thank you for the memories and inspiration throughout. That was nice. LeBron and Brady, two sporting giants of the last 20-plus years. How about this? Whoa. These two have combined to win 11 titles, 9 championship MVPs, and 7 regular season MVPs. They should just send out one combined resume and make it like a show that they go on package deal. Broussard, what do you think? Is the 21st century better defined by LeBron or Brady?
You know what's interesting is I looked at that graphic and 19 seasons for LeBron, 22 for Brady. To me, Brady feels much older than LeBron. I guess maybe because LeBron entered right out of high school, but he feels a lot older than LeBron. But to answer your question, Jenna, overall, it's obviously LeBron. You know, business mogul that I think he's even inspired Brady to follow his blueprint for becoming this mogul off the court. Social justice, player empowerment that changed the NBA, all that. Clearly, LeBron, social media presence is just ridiculous. Much greater than Brady's is. But on the field, between the lines, on the field, on the court, I got to go with Brady. Because Brady, individually, they're both going to retire with a lot of records. I think Brady will have more. They both have a lot. But Brady left his sport as the undisputed GOAT. I mean, if you don't think Tom Brady's the GOAT quarterback, then most likely you're just a hater. You just don't want to give him the love. But he is undisputed GOAT of football when it comes to the quarterback position. LeBron is not. And I mean, and this is, Nick and I can debate. I think it's Jordan. Nick thinks it's LeBron. But let's go to other sources. The Athletic polled NBA players anonymously. 73% of them, just in the last couple of years, said it's Jordan over LeBron. ESPN, 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, polled fans. 73% of them said Jordan over LeBron. So even if you want to argue that LeBron's the GOAT, it's far from undisputed, and it's more undisputed that it would be Jordan. So there's that. Secondly, LeBron won 3 of his championships with super teams. Tom Brady won championships with leading receivers named Rashae Caldwell, David Givens, Troy Brown, Deion Branch. Hey. And Wes Welker didn't even start in Miami before he got to New England, and he turned him into a star. So I think LeBron, and then LeBron's last title with Anthony Davis. So I think he had more superstars playing with him than Brady did for most of his titles.
So is the guy the undisputed best player ever? That oddly then kind of turns this into a Joe Montana versus Michael Jordan debate. Like, should LeBron be penalized because Jordan was more excellent than Montana? Because if Montana had won more, right? Like if Montana had 6 Super Bowls, you guys, because you're talking about the gap between 1 and 2. That's what you're talking about. Hold on, I understand.
I mean,
but you're talking about that, right? I get it, but the point is when you're talking about was he the undisputed best in the history of what he did? You are then having to do the math on, okay, who's the guy that's 1 or 2? How good was he? So now we're into the weeds on that in a way that I don't think answers the question. Question is who dominated the last 20 years more? And to me, it's unquestionable that it's LeBron. Because while there might be a debate at the moment about who the greatest basketball player ever was, throughout the vast majority of LeBron's prime, there was no debate about who the best basketball player currently playing was. It was LeBron, consensus for the better part of a decade. That was not true for Brady. For the first 15 years of Brady's career, there was a real debate about him versus Peyton Manning. The last few years, there was a debate about him versus Aaron Rodgers. There was not about who had the better resume, but who was the better player. Additionally, Brady, if we're going to do the count the rings thing, Wilds, the reason that is unfair is because Brady has been able to win rings without being great. You told me all year, first Super Bowl run, 1 touchdown, not in the Super Bowl, in the whole playoff run. The last Super Bowl with the Patriots, 13 points. So there's 2 of the rings directly attributed to the defense. So you say super team, those teams had some pretty super team defenses. The Super Bowl with Tampa, he was great in the Super Bowl. The game before, he had his version of the 2011 finals just condensed in one half. Interception, interception, interception against the Packers, and his team bailed him out. Every time LeBron's bad, his team loses. The only way for him to win is for him to be great. And lastly, LeBron had nothing close to a Belichick. LeBron had Mike Brown, who had never been to a finals till LeBron carried him there. Eric Spoelstra had never been to a finals, so LeBron took him there. David Blatt, who'd never been to a finals, and then was, had to flee the United States because he's such a bad coach. LeBron still took him to the finals. Ty Lue, and then Frank Vogel. And so LeBron has done it with no independent of coaching and has to be great every time. And so to me, yes, the rings. Count the rings. Count the rings. Count the rings. Sure. But LeBron was the more dominant player over the last 20 years.
I agree. I think it's good. If LeBron somehow got to 7 rings and was equal to Brady, Nick, would you change your mind on this whole, counting the rings is overrated? Bill Russell still has the most rings. Would you change your tune if LeBron ever caught up to Brady and surpassed Jordan?
No, because I just want everyone to understand, it's never been about counting the rings. Because Kareem has the same rings as Jordan, same points, more MVPs. And no one brings it up. Because, Brew, it's not about the rings. It's not about logic.
I agree.
It's about Michael Jordan has to be the answer to every question. It's, Brew, it's why you talked about
There
polls.
are other reasons to think that Jordan's the GOAT. It's not just rings.
Brew, you talked about polls.
But
you were like the athletic poll.
Go ahead.
There was a poll last year that Michael Jordan was the greatest college basketball player ever. Jordan's going to win all the polls because of your media propaganda. Because you guys have been pushing this soup into people's brains for 15 years.
Nick, I agree with you. Individually, in a vacuum, LeBron was a better player in his sport than Brady. Individually.
Okay, thanks.
But Brady won more rings than any other franchise.
I heard you agree with me also.
He's defined the century more than any other franchise. He's dominated
We gotta
his
go
sport.
Undisputed starts right now.